Thank you so much for tuning in to You in Wellness. This is our second episode. We're sitting here with Luke Quamina from the Open Bible Church. I want you to spend some time talking to me, and really just, full my spirit a little bit. I want you to tell the people and them about yourself just as we start.
Simplified version. I always say I grew up. Father was a teacher, Seline Deon. My mother was unemployed at the time. I always like to talk about growing up in a one-room house. At that time, nobody ever used the word poor or poverty. The walls were galvanized, roof galvanized, part of the floor is lipe. And the only time I really knew that things were a little bit different is when a friend invited me to his birthday party. His father was a doctor. We go to a new community. The houses all have nice fences, driveways, cars, the furniture match, paintings on the wall. So when you come home, you started to compare. By the way, I can tell you, comparison is a thief of joy because when you start comparing yourself with others, it can sometimes create a sadness. Anyways, growing up, the father is a school teacher and very simple beginning. And then I think I found a little confidence in high school. I went to presentation, college, when I found out I could do well at sports.
Yeah.
I think doing well at anything builds an individual's confidence. And played sports, did national cricket, and then didn't really know what to do with my life. When you go to sometimes the prestige high schools, you want to do medicine to please everybody, law, business, and then probably modern studies is another option. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up doing management information systems. Interesting thing is I actually got a scholarship to go and study, not for academics, but for music.
Oh, really?
To play the drums, did a minor in music as well. Yeah. But still not too sure what I really wanted to do. And I think that whole experience is why I now do what I do. I ended up doing a master's in organizational leadership and development and started a doctorate in education, focusing on organizational leadership and development. Made, development with John C. Maxwell, who's known as, to me, the number one thought leader in leadership. And if you know my father, how he developed through the years, I had a father, coach, mentor in one.
Right.
So now what I currently do is I coach individuals, personal growth coach, and I do organizational leadership and development. So my passion is I like to see anybody who forms a company, business organization that involves more than one person. Training is a very necessary aspect of that. But you cannot grow organizations if you don't grow people. And that has to be strategic.
Yeah.
You just don't leave it for a company doesn't grow. People grow, and the growing people grow the company.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? They do better. So I go in and I create plans for the individuals, and then I speak to the leadership about the type of culture that they're developing, how they select people, how they train people, how they reward people, how they hold people accountable, how they deal with change. It's very exciting to me. So I have found myself in that space and just continue to add value globally.
And that's a real, that's a real succinct way of how you got here.
Yeah.
But I want to dive in a little bit more, and we could flesh this out for a little bit.
Right.
How did you find your way? How did you find your purpose? How did you, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. Well, the struggle is real.
And why I ask that, because a lot of people outside here just going about not knowing what to do or just stumbling around basically, or even finding it very late.
Yeah.
How could we bridge that gap between,
The one thing I will say, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, if it's one thing God said, Luke, is there anything you would ask me to change in this world? I think the entire world will change if when people were born, they did not have to figure out what their purpose was. If when you were born, everybody knew their purpose, this world will look a lot different. Because the opposite is true. It's the quote of the late Martin Luther King Jr. If a man does not know what he will die for, then that life is not worth living. He's literally telling you to not know purpose.
Yeah.
It's not worth living. To do all this time and not have a sense of meaning. So for me, I struggled. I just did not know what to do. And how do you decide what path to take, the direction? And the truth is, your future is really inside of you. It's not out there. It's something you have to discover. And I borrowed this from the late Dr. Miles Monroe, is that the purpose of a creation is in the mind of its creator. So anything created, you have to ask the person who created it, why? So a long time I used to say, what is my purpose? Well, it's not my purpose. What was the purpose given to me by the one who created me?
Yeah.
Then it became easier. So I had to search the mind of the creator. I said, Luke, how do you do that? Well, the mind of God is plastered in his word. And when I started to search, it's a really divine experience. Nobody could tell you this thing. It's a divine experience. I had this experience in Bahamas by myself, 16 years old, and I had an encounter with God.
Yeah.
And when I had that encounter with God, I was reading a verse and he says, Luke, this is your life's message. I said, what does that mean? He says, this is how your life will have meaning. Live this out, and for the rest of your days, you will find purpose. You'll find fulfillment. And it was to give oversight of nations and kingdoms, to root out, pull down, overthrow, destroy, to build and to plant. At that time, I did not know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant. It was like, okay, nations. I've never even gone to 2 or 3 countries. What are you talking about oversight?
But that resonated within you.
It was a truth that was already finished, even though I didn't understand it. That means God's not having opinions, God's not joking around and telling you something to fancy and get you fired up for the moment. No, what God says is actually true. And the truth is, most people have not, first step, discovered it. I always use Guyana now as an example. Guyana was always rich.
Yeah.
But when did Guyana start to experience their wealth? They made a discovery.
Yeah.
So most people are like Guyana, sitting with wealth, undiscovered. And you can see that in the quality of life changing in Guyana.
Yeah, that's true.
Business is changing. What is promised to individuals is changing. I'm not too sure. Don't hold me to this, but I understand President just long ago talked about a certain allotment of money for every household.
Yeah.
Why? Why are they prospering now? Because of a discovery.
Actually, that changed now. So it's 18 years and above, $100,000.
Come on.
And you remember a time in Trinidad, we used to say everybody in Trinidad could get $1 million?
Yes, yes.
They're doing that right now.
So they prospered. Why? Because of a discovery. No, you can't just discover only. So for those of you listening, I want you to know, the moment you discover, you could get excited. But on top of your discovery, you have to develop.
It doesn't stay just like that.
No,
Yeah.
the education is a part of the development. Mentorship is a part of the development. Getting in the right association is a part of the development. Knowing what to study is a part of the development. I think it says, Ecclesiastes 10:10, it says, if the axe is dull, then much strength is needed. What does that mean? When you are not sharp means strategy and approach. When you are not sharp, when you are not equipped, you use a lot of strength to make life work. You're trying.
Yeah.
You have plenty of effort.
Yeah.
But you have strategy. Focus and strategy causes you to get probably 10 times more the results than only strength. So I do need strength, but I need strategy as well. So it says, but wisdom causes one to succeed. That means a dull axe is lightened onto somebody with an ignorant mind. A trying to make life work, but you lack a certain wise counsel that can make your efforts more strategic. Then somebody comes in like a mentor and says, Kern, here's what you're doing. You're earning by your effort only. Why not scale and create a platform that you could put other minds on a platform, create value for more people? Kern says, all right, I'm going to take that counsel. I run with it. And I was in Netherlands when you called me about this. And the only reason I'm out here, tired as I am, is because I am excited to get around people who are making things happen for other people.
Oh gosh, man.
You're not hoarding the value.
See.
You've given value to thousands already, but you say, hey, let's take this thing to the next level. Let's empower more people. You're developing on something you discovered.
Yeah, yeah.
The last step is deployment. Deployment means what I discovered, I've developed, and now I must distribute. And Ghana cannot collect money unless they distribute what they've discovered. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was my process. I had an encounter with God, but then he taught me the process. And the reason he taught me the process is to teach others. This is how I find fulfillment, helping other people discover, develop, and deploy. And let me tell you something. I get an itch whenever I sit next to somebody who has untapped potential and unknown purpose. I start to feel. I say, I can't be around them and just let them keep going on in life and not realize, you have more inside of you. You're just going to walk around with this thing. And a lot of times, they don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if you want to go here, I'm going to go here one time. You know why they don't know? Because we live around people sometimes who lack the discernment of the treasure within us. Your home, I love everybody in my home. Your home, you see the counsel from your house could change the rest of your life.
Let me, before you move on.
I touch a nerve, something I touch. We go fix that.
Man, I remember one time my dad and we went into it, man. And he was just like, what are you doing that for? You don't need to do that. I started to go to the gym. He's like, what are you doing that for? You don't need to do that. What are you doing that? You good just so? And I'm just like, no, I could be better. Yeah. And then he's like, when I say I wanted to go study physio, he's like, what are you going there for? You don't need to do that. I don't have the money for that. Where you going on? And look.
See, what they do is it really is an imposing of their self-limiting beliefs. And it's a fear. I always remember my dad played cricket for Trinidad. One time he told me he went to Grenada. And going over from Grenada to Carriacou was on a small boat at that time. He said it was a night. He said I had a flambeau for light. He said, and the boat was down here and the water was up there. And look, I thought I was going to die. He said that part of the water was called Kick Him Jimmy.
Yeah.
So when it was time for me to go, this is years later, it's a big boat, time to go across from Grenada to Carriacou. What you think is in my thoughts? My father's fears. How in the middle he almost died, and how the boat was down here, and how the waves was up there. So when I reach across safe, I say, sometimes we will never take certain journeys because of somebody in our life we put on a pedestal, we put on a platform. And I've always said this, one of the worst types of counsel is friendly, ungodly counsel. Ooh. The friendly opens you up. The ungodly throws you off.
Yeah.
It's like David's brother, bro, go back home. Daddy sent you here to bring bread and cheese. And make sure you go back home to the few sheep that you have responsibility over. This big man thing down here, we dealing with war. But he saw David as a delivery boy. You just came to drop lunch for us. But that day, David left as the deliverer of Israel. And I've seen in families over and over again, somebody says, we don't have the money for it. I don't see that working out for you. I don't really see that potential in you.
Yeah.
I don't see others doing that. And those voices, it's like God to us because we trust them.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening right now, I don't know who this is for, but you could be sitting on riches, and the reason you haven't discovered it is because you've been listening to all the wrong voices.
So who do we listen to?
Well, I want to say this, and I said this to somebody the other day. I don't know if you ever know the story of Elisha in the Bible. There are people who are successful. But in the case of Elisha and Elijah, I say this, it takes a prophet to raise a prophet. So you
break
can't,
that down for me. I'm not in the church, I'm not in the Bible school.
And this is not mean to be spiritual. It means a person who dug a business out of the ground and built it will see a undug business in you that nobody else can see. When you say it takes one to know one?
Yeah.
When you get around somebody who has paid the price, suffered, and built something but they see this similar seed inside of you,
Yeah.
they'll say, I mean, I'm not saying this only because we're on the podcast. I wouldn't show up for everybody's podcast. But you know that's true.
That is true. That is true. And I'm
You
honored
just can't put
ever.
yourself anywhere.
Yeah.
Your
and
branding is important.
For sure.
Your association, your name. You just don't put your talent anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you see something in somebody, if you see a future, if you see a destiny, and you see greatness, usually the right voice is somebody who sees something in you.
Well, I could take that, you know. I could go with that.
No, you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
for sure,
Lara,
for
I'm
sure.
watching some of the players in the West Indies women team. If I were them, you know, the first phone call I'm making, I'm not trying to go and train in the nets by myself, you know. I'm not even limiting myself to my own coach. If you want to be great, you pick up the phone. You call a Des Haynes, you call a Richie Richardson, you call a Brian Lara, you call a Carl Hooper, and you say, I am sending you my videos. You watch my technique and you tell me what you would change. That's how you improve. Why? Because that person built that business before.
Put yourself in a position where people could critique you.
That's a part of your development.
And people could look at you and say, go this way, go that way, do a little bit more of this.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, there's some people who could carry you to a distance, but only so far.
And you know what? I have been finding that out, you know. You know, we always talk about people being in your life for a season and for a time.
Yes.
And, you know, I've really seen that people could really walk with you just to that point. And then when you develop beyond that person, and it's like, okay, I need to associate myself with some other people. Or you get to the point where you are the smartest one in the room.
And you appreciate the role they played.
You do.
Your standard one teacher is your standard one teacher. We go back and we say, listen, I really appreciated you, but she didn't teach you in standard 5. Not because she lacked capacity, but her role was to get you from that first year, past what she had to do in the curriculum standard 1, and then hand you over. That was her role. And that's the role of many people and individuals in your life. But that whole section on developing your life is major. It's education is a part of it, but I would say there's a lot that happens outside of the classroom.
I want to talk about the people who find themselves on the outside of not being able to find their purpose and develop and extract and deploy. You know, what's the other D? Develop.
Discover, develop, deploy.
Discover, develop, and deploy. Persons on the outside there, sometimes what happens is that they struggle, and they struggle with issues in the mind, they struggle with self-worth, they struggle, you know, to get up and go to work and do things in the day. You know, what would you say to somebody like that?
Well, first of all, welcome. Welcome to the struggle. I think it is the struggle that allows one to find. If one is hungry and thirsty, they'll start knocking on doors. They'll start asking questions. You know, the book says, ask and the answer shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open. All the first words in those 3 things are action words that says, I don't have something and I need it, so
do something.
Knock. Ask. Don't close your mouth. Ask. Listen, you know, you look successful, what you have done. You put yourself in position. You know, the other day I went to the market. I like to go to the market and buy my goods and stuff, right? I like to cook. And I noticed when you go in the market, it have 2 type of people selling. Right? You have people with their goods so good, they don't say anything. You know what you want as a buyer. When you watch around, if it's avocado you want, pumpkin you want, bodi you want, you watch around and say, ooh, that pumpkin look good. You come to them, ask them how much a pound, and they start cutting out. Then it have those, they have good goods, but they realize the amount of stalls in here is about 10 of us selling pumpkin. So if I don't open my mouth, I would not attract attention. So I went down there the other day, and a lady said, avocado from Parliament. I turn around because, you know, it's almost like part of she brand. She not just have avocado from Parliament. I turn around, breakneck, you know. I go along there for the avocado. When I reach down, I don't know if this avocado really from Parliament. But guess what? She opened her mouth.
Gotcha.
And why did she get that sale? Ask, and the answer shall be given. Seek. You have to take action on the emotion or the feeling of the loss or the lack or the emptiness. But don't sit there. If it's the one thing I would say, don't sit there. You know, you have to make a move. So what started to happen is one day you have to get sick and tired about being sick and tired. One day you have to ask yourself, why don't I own my house yet? Why I don't have the car that I probably want to drive? Why I can't travel the way I want to travel? Or go on the plane and say, if I wanted to sit down business class, I sit down business class. Why if I wanted to give this lady, you know, her kid struggling, I should just be able to buy and purchase the whole book bag and do it. There are things you will want to do in life, and then you will realize that I probably can't do it because I'm not in the place that I am, could be, to do it. And those are the things, exposure, that gives you a chance to change. Frustration is what gives you a chance to change.
Sometimes the community that we find ourselves in, which is not a product of, which we have no control over, it's hard to break out of that.
Yeah. It's rough, but I'll tell you this. Look like whoever logged on to this, I'll tell you how some people say the universe or God or whatever. You know how God works? He'll make them find this. They're struggling, whatever, it'll be late in the night. He'll make them find this link.
Yeah.
And they will hear exactly what, because I realize that God mercifully, He sends opportunities, you know. Sometimes it don't come with no loud bang. It just comes, you know, the story of the guy, he's drowning out there. And he pray, God help me, I do not want to drown today. And a man come on a little dinghy boat. He says, sir, do you need help? He says, no, I'm praying, God's going to send help for me. Another guy comes on a jet ski. He says, sir, do you need any assistance, whatever? He says, no. Another guy is passing on them things that's be pulling them big ships. Sir, you say, no, I pray God will send help. And the man drowned. Gets to heaven and he has this question. God, he said, God, you know, I praying. For you to come in and intervene and help me. I was drowning out there. God said, I sent 3 men. And I think for a lot of people, they're waiting for this grand divine entrance. But sometimes it's counsel from a friend. Hey, I saw this video here. These guys were doing a thing. Listen to this.
Yeah.
And that was your help, you know. Help came.
Yeah, man.
What we have to learn to do is, even in the worst communities, right now I work with some of the young men and Empower TT, you know, in Trinidad, if you're listening to this, through the Ministry of Sport, Community Development. And right now helping some of them we're going to launch a project to sell seasoning on the weekend. We buying wholesale, selling retail. Say, look, we don't have any jobs. I say, all right. Job is not the only way to earn.
True.
You're willing to sell because closed mouth don't get fed. I say every weekend in this country, somebody cooking.
That is true.
And they need pimento, pepper, chive, celery,
That will surely
garlic,
sell.
onion. Bag out already.
Yeah.
We buying wholesale, we selling retail. The point is, when you are hungry and thirsty, somehow life is give you a way to meet somebody, hear something, read something. But the key is to take action. Life rewards action. So in your hunger and your thirst, make a move.
See, I reflect on my own life, and there was a time when I was just like, Lord, yo, I can't be poor again, you know. Like, we never had guests over, my friends and whatnot, over to celebrate birthdays and whatnot. We always thought that the house was too small, you know, it was kind of rickety, you know, and it's just like, I don't want to live that life, you know, and in me not wanting to live that life, I always searched. I was like, yo, how could men buy BMWs and Benzes in our lifetime? But not just one, but everybody in their house driving a Benz, you know, and that was like, that was crazy to me that people could earn that kind. And then I was just like, nah, I had to work this out. I had to find this. And that put me on a search, you know, on a journey to really understand that, hey, you really have to, you put in the sweat. You put that sweat in there.
So people are hearing this. So that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I would tell you one of the most important second steps is you gotta let this hunger lead you to somebody. And this is how I say it. When you find purpose, you're like a seed. But there's somebody who is like the harvest to your seed. That tells you, that's what you could do with this. This is what you could build with this. This is how huge this could go.
Yeah.
It's almost like they are the future. You are the seed. You're the beginning, but they are the future. What I find is your real curriculum of learning, of development, is to get an opportunity to be coached, mentored, and sometimes the person don't even know you. It starts with buying their books, getting their audios, getting proximity.
Stick up in. So you're saying all of that, right? Good. But how do I even choose a mentor? Because like it have so much people with voices out there, you know?
Yeah. So the challenge of over choice. So when you discover, part of your discovery is who you are, identity. So if you discover you're a pumpkin seed, now you know who you're looking for is a pumpkin harvest.
Yeah.
So when in the discovery, there must be some clarity on this is what I am actually carrying. Because that's how you identify really who to listen to. Now, I only have two simple things as far as voices. One is character. You have to find a way to know if this person is who they say they are. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And the second is competence. They actually have to be able to deliver on the results that they do. But the reason I say character first is because that's who you are. That's really who you are. They say character is who you are in the dark. So a big thing for me is really nobody wants the message. I mean, look recently with P. Diddy, right? And I look at people's response to when a man is in turmoil or crisis, and nobody's perfect, none of us. And when there are repercussions for actions. But the truth is, that's the thing that can destroy your story. Not your talent. He still has talent. Still has skill. Still has personality. Still has charisma. The thing that could destroy you is failure, moral failure, and failure in character. So when choosing a mentor, I will say look for that first. Little things like their word is their bond. He say you're going to be here, you're going to be here. Say you're going to be here for 5, you're here for 5. Like today, I'm here at 4:58 or 4:15. I hate being on time because you're late. But I say an hour should get me here. But little things like that. If I'm running late, I have to call ahead because today, your word is everything. You know, that's who you really are. Can you be a person who will honor your word? So I would say, start to look for that. And when you, in your hunger, you start listening to people, what happens is that that person's voice or that person's message, you will find, it makes you come alive in a certain way. You can listen to a lot of people, but there are a few people in a certain season of your life, their words will like...
Yeah, I remember when I found my mentor. Oh, gosh, boy, listen to me. When I heard him speak for the very first time, like questions that I didn't even have, he answered.
Right. Long before you even think about asking them. Because he knew you. It's like the person knows where you are. They speak your language.
Yeah. And we sat down and we talked for like hours after I heard him speak. And then I was just like, I'm going to spend some time and, just kind of soak that in a little bit. So after I find a mentor, what happens after that, man?
No, I want to say the whole big umbrella that you really cannot have what we may term spiritual health without the discovery of purpose. Because think of the health of someone without meaning. If you take away meaning of life to someone, it's like you make them sick,
Shucks.
And there are so many people who are living that life. But development is a part of, when a tree grows, it firstly grows down, which is roots, before it starts to grow up. And when it grows up, you'll start to see branches, which is evident growth. But there's another type of growth that you don't see, and that's the thickening of the stem and the thickening of the trunk. You don't get up and say, hey, look how thick the trunk is.
You don't see that.
But that is the resilience of the tree. You see that type of growth in humans? What allows you to take the storms of life is the strength of the spirit, the health of the spirit.
But before you go on, I find that we're coming through a season, or we're in a season where we've had a lot of people, off life themselves. And we had a young man who did that recently, unfortunately. And one of the questions that I've asked myself is, what about that particular situation that made him do that, but he couldn't stand or withstand, the trials that came out during the class?
See, we have to get better with our words, and the first training institution of life is the home. I wish I could record sometimes how I speak to my children, especially Judah this morning. Judah, put on your seatbelt. Because I know he has a technical mind, and also his teacher told us the other day, Judah is distracting a lot of the kids in class with his talk, so we've put him to sit down in the back. That's what I learned. And I said, interesting. And I saw him kind of put his head down, physiology changed because he thought he disappointed me. So I said this morning, I'm going to use the opportunity to talk to him. I said, you know why I'm telling you to put on your seatbelt, right? He said, no. So I said, all right, pause. When we paused a little bit, I pull up the video on how seatbelts actually work and the stats, because I know his mind. He's technical.
Right.
So he's listening to it in the back seat.
Yeah.
And it starts off with how many millions of lives seatbelts has saved, but the actual technology of how it works. So as I explain, I say, press pause. I say, now, let me tell you something. You see your mind? You will create things bigger and better than that. I say, you realize the man who had the patent for the seatbelt decided to let every other car company in the world use it because he didn't want to just profit from it to sell it to everybody. He freely allowed people to use it. It started off as a harness. But right after that, I say, see you will create technologies like that in this world. I see his posture straighten up in the back.
Yeah.
I say, you so smart. I watch your mind. You will sit down one day and figure things out like that. Now, his posture was very different to when I was dealing with him with what his teacher said. And I'm telling you, words is what builds or breaks an individual. And it has to come from home. They will trust teachers. But I said to him, you are a winner. And if you go in that school and anybody says anything different to you, you come home and tell daddy. And I'll be most present in that school.
Yeah.
So when he left out of the car today, he knows from home he's a champion. Nothing in school, on a book, on a paper, on an exam will tell my son who he is. He is who I say he is.
You say that, and I tell you what, every morning as I drop my daughters to school, we recite a verse from the Bible. It says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Come on.
They know that. And as soon as I say I am, they spit it out.
Right away.
And I said that from a very early age. They need to know that they're fearfully and wonderfully made.
But we live in a world that is going to challenge that.
Yeah.
And we have to, like clockwork, over time, build this type of resilience. Also for us as individuals, I talk to myself all the time.
And as you say that, I knew for myself that I had to always had a very strong mental conversation with myself about myself. So that when somebody say, boy, you stupid, but go from here with your duncy self. And I had to tell myself, nah.
Yeah.
I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Come on.
For I know the plans I have for you.
Even starting this, you have to talk to yourself.
Bro!
Because you a lot of dreams aren't attempted because we spoke ourselves out of the dream.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Gideon, you're a mighty man of valor. Well, our tribe is small, and I'm the weakest in our tribe.
I mean, even before I even started my business, right? Like, I remember having that conversation with myself, like, to do it or not to do, to do it or not to do, to do it or not to do it. And then, boom, Joshua, be strong and be courageous. I say to you again, be very strong and very courageous. And I was like, let me go. Let me go.
Just do it. And I'll tell you this. We have to change the meaning of what we call failure. Because I remember my dad, the day I tried out for National Under 14, the day I make the team, I make reserve. When I come home, Daddy say, pad up. This is full day long trial in bowling. I want to say, pad up. We had a driveway and he used to bowl me. I say, why am I padding up? Today, I didn't make the team. And trials is next year. Father say, failure is feedback. What that means? I failed. But what did I learn? See, sometimes we just thinking of what we're getting out of life. I heard
Yeah.
that from Jim Rohn. He says, but what did you get from it? Meaning, what jewel or what lesson, what nugget did it leave for you?
Seen.
And my father said, here's the nugget. 1, be more aggressive. And 2, especially on your legs, you have to develop those shots from the middle to middle and leg. You're strong on the offside, but I want you to develop from middle to middle and leg.
Yeah.
So show me more aggression.
More aggression.
We
yeah.
trained that day.
Yeah, yeah.
The next time I went back, I didn't try out for that national under 14. I tried for national under 16. Made the team.
Wow.
So the whole thing is, what am I learning? No, you don't have resilience if you don't have somebody to reassure you in times that you consider failure is like a dead end.
Yeah.
This whole thing about spiritual health we're talking about, if you don't develop and thicken the trunk of life, growth is part of your resistance and resilience. It is the life that is not growing that is most vulnerable to getting knocked down. Woo. Look what happened in COVID. Some people grew. Why? Because they were on personal development.
Yeah, they were.
Taking in stuff, reading new books, upskilling, retooling. So while people are worrying about COVID, some people were growing through COVID.
I grew in COVID.
Come on.
Big time, man.
Come on.
Big time. And as painful as it was, you know, having that quote unquote downtime, man, I was able to invest a lot into myself. Yeah. And part of it is this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of it is this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having that positive self-talk, you really have to train that, you know, because the noise never stops, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
The
A
noise
good book is
never
called
stops.
Hung by the Tongue. It's really about learning to talk to yourself. And I know I mentioned it before, but what it transitions to, which is the last part, is really, deployment is really, I don't want to say selling yourself, but sharing now your value.
Right.
I now know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm clear.
Yeah.
I know how to develop. I had the mentor. Probably I got the education. I do some training. I have proximity to an association or a community that's also growing. I've done some travel. I want to say that before I go to the last part, exposure is everything. What does that mean? If you're in design, don't just learn from people in Trinidad. You got to go to the design capital.
Yeah, go France.
Where is the best place in the world for what I'm about to do? Who is the best voice that I should be hearing? What happened early with me in speaking is I heard Zig Ziglar live. And if you know who Zig Ziglar is, #1 motivational speaker in the world at that time. On goals, everybody used to listen to Zig corporate training. When I sat down and listened to this man live,
Mine was Les Brown. Love Les Brown. Boy.
sat with Les as well. And
Yeah.
so what I did, I pursued the best voices in the world. I didn't sit down in Trinidad and say, well, I want to develop in communication, so let me just look at the local examples. We have great local examples. But I went and spent my money to invest where the best orators in the world were.
And even in my profession as well, I have done that as well, you know. Spent my money and gone away and done things.
Technology,
Yeah.
what are people doing?
Yeah.
What's new? That keeps the mind fresh.
It does. It also expands your horizon as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shows you, it allows you to bring back ideas.
Yes.
Yeah. And say, this is where we need to go to as an industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like when I was growing up, man, heavy on my heart to be a motivational speaker. It's still a thing that's inside of me, you know.
We talked about it,
Yeah.
and I told you now is that opportunity to share that value, which is the last part, which is the deployment of your value. Now, the things that hold people back from sharing, one is sometimes the lack of opportunity. That's why you have to stay in close proximity to people who have gone ahead, because some of the biggest opportunities that will come to you will come through others.
True. That is true.
Somebody who is developing you or feels responsible for you or cares for you, you'll find that they will see open doors and say, couldn't you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You stretch yourself. Take up that opportunity. Or they'll say, hey, Kern, this is something I'm working on. You want to jump in on it? Why? Because they've seen you spend some time, develop. Now, I always say this. Don't go to market unless you're ripe. And what does that mean? Most fruit selling in the market is not green.
Listen to me. Listen to me. This here ripen a whole year now. Yeah.
Don't go to market unless you've matured. A ripe fruit is really a fruit that has matured and is ready for eating. So sometimes one is lack of opportunity. Two is fear. People fear failure, but people also fear success.
You know, there's a quote that says, you know, you don't want to die without knowing that you've oh gosh, it eludes me right now, but it's basically fearing that you have been successful, you know. And I always said to myself, I never want to hold myself back from anything.
Yeah.
And I always, if there's something that I want to do, I want to do my best with regards to it. And I want to cast away all fear, and I just want to go hard at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The challenging thing, I'll tell you the truth is, Kern, there's a price to pay. Probably we don't talk about the other side of it enough. When people see me, you know, sometimes I put it out, sometimes I don't. But when you're traveling all over the world doing stuff, that looks good to somebody who probably want to travel.
Yeah.
And there's fun. But I heard Seline Deon she said, I've been to every continent and I've traveled all the world, but I've not seen anywhere. I jump off a private jet, I go in there, I sing in front of a stadium of 60,000, I get back into a hotel room, they put me back on a private jet, and I'm going to another nation. She said, I did it, but I have not seen anywhere. The truth is, for me, when I travel all over the world to speak now, you know, I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. It's painful for me. I don't want to sleep in a hotel room by myself. I want my wife next to me, and I want my children, somebody on my neck, somebody on my shoulder, sleeping where they're not supposed to sleep, because that is heaven to me.
Yeah.
Having the family right. So there's a price. And I think what has happened is when we have seen people reach the top and fall, because the mighty have fallen, and that is always in the back of your mind. Should I reach for more? Should I go for more? Should I go higher? Look at what they did to him. Look at what they did to her. Sometimes I talk about serving at a higher level of authority in my country, probably even in governance. They say, Luke, don't do that. Luke, don't do that. Luke, don't do that.
I tell you what, you know, that same thought was for this, you know. And I was like, Kern, you're already doing well. Do you want to go again? What that then does is that opens you up to being even more popular.
People are critical.
Very.
Exposed.
Yeah.
A lot more to say.
Yeah.
Right? And there are a lot of people who are haters of those who do good. They're natural enemies of people who do good. Why? Because they're not for that philosophy. They don't support that. And Jesus actually said, don't be surprised because they hated me. He did good. And they hated him.
Yeah.
And death really came by haters because the truth is he could have rescued himself, but he didn't. And it wasn't the people who were for him, it was those who were against him. But it was still a victory for those of us who understand that. So the execution of your value is to be unselfish. What does that mean? To serve is, to me, the highest level of selflessness that there can be. I am making myself uncomfortable to make sure you are comfortable.
Oh, gosh.
I am losing my peace. I'm going to work on my craft. I'm going to stay up at night. I'm going to study the techniques. You stay in your bed. I'm going to work on mastery, pay the price. Hours, blood, sweat, and tears. To make sure that when you step into my office place in half hour, what I apply to you can free you up and send you back home without pain or send you back home without peace. That's the highest level to me of selflessness, to serve. And that's why Jesus says, you want to be great? Learn to serve. Because the key to greatness is service. And if somebody's listening, you know, to us now, I want to say, don't hold back this value from the world. Unleash. Let the world feel what God has gifted you with. Because to die with it, to me, as the late Dr. Miles Monroe said, he said the richest place in this world is the cemetery, the graveyard. Because so many people go back to the grave with some of the greatest riches that should have been released in the earth, but yet still it died with them.
Luke, I want to thank you for coming on to You and Wellness. I want to thank you for spending time talking about spiritual health.
Yes.
And also just touching a little bit on mental health and purpose as well. You know, you definitely the 3Ds: develop, discover, develop, and deploy. You know, it's definitely something that would stay with me, and you know, just definitely just work with that. You know, Luke, thank you so much again.
Always a pleasure to
we clang a little
to
glass
sit with kings. And I know there's more to come. My challenge to you is, you know, you develop this to the place where, just like Oprah mentioned her to you.
Yeah.
She said, I'm not going to let TV use me, but I'm going to use TV as a tool to accomplish a great purpose. And I think you're well on your way to doing so.
Oh gosh, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for the words of encouragement. Thank you so much for investing in the podcast.
Of course.
Thank you so much for, you know, investing in myself as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to You in Wellness. This is our second episode. Luke, how can we get in touch with you?
Any of the social media platforms.
Any of the social media
Yeah, just
platforms.
come and kick it with me. Be in community. We have great and some great things are in store. You know, we're pulling together the leadership community of the entire Caribbean. Coming off of what we did with Edge, we have some great things.
When can someone see you speak? Is it only closed sessions or?
Most of the sessions are closed, but I'm going to open up a community for those who really want to have a closer mentorship, personal growth, and leadership development as soon as November, where I will be doing exclusive content in there for growth as we go week by week.
And if anybody wants to help your young men, how can they reach out and help?
I would say just reach out directly. We have a lot of room to serve, especially if you're based in the Caribbean territory or even in Trinidad. Hopefully everything approves in Parliament. But if we go for another year, we're going to go bigger so we can have a greater reach to empower most of these young men of our country, all for the betterance of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
Fantastic.
We live in a life and we want to make it count.
I love that. I love that. We need that right now.
Yes, sir.
Guys, episode 2, You in Wellness. Thank you for watching. This is Kern Roberts. I'm your host. You in Wellness. Have a good one.